Okay, we're going to start in. We've got just a tiny bit of wrap-up from last time. We were finishing up on attachment and talking about how attachment status, when you're an infant, is another risk factor, or maybe vulnerability because it appears early and the effects might last. It's not everything, but it may set the stage, especially for very insecure attachment, especially for disorganized attachment, for later problems to creep in. So, is culture a moderator? Remember a moderator? It's a variable that if you put into the equation at the different levels of the moderator, the main association between A and B changes around. So, is there something about how parents are responsive to their kids in the first year of life and their kids' attachment classifications that's different in different cultures? So this is a controversial area of research. People debate this. Some people have said when they've gone in and done the strange situation in Japan, there's more kids who are in the insecure resistant category. Remember that one we talked about briefly? The kids who don't really know what to make of the parents' disappearance and returning and have a lot of emotional distress upon the reunion. And some people who study culture say, well, why wouldn't you expect that? In Japan, the cultural norm is for mothers and infants, could be fathers, mainly mothers, to be very close all the time, and it's a big disruption to go in with this funny, strange situation assessment. Infants don't expect that. So you're going to find more resistance because it violates the cultural norm for this kid to be separated arbitrarily. In Germany, others have contended you find a higher proportion than in America or other countries of insecure avoidant responses. Remember, those are the ones where there's a separation, then at the reunion, the kid's kind of going like, yeah, I know you're back, but I'm not going to give you the time of day, to kind of fend off emotional distress, and maybe the more rigid, somewhat authoritarian, which we'll talk about soon, parenting styles in Germany, which might even display in the first few months of life, are creating a cultural preponderance of avoidant infants. Way back, 40 years ago, Jerome Kagan, the noted developmental psychologist studying temperament, went to Guatemala on an anthropological study and found that what happened in rural Guatemala a lot of the time, as parents would go out in the fields and work, sugarcane, whatever the crops were, infants were essentially somewhat bound and left hanging or hanging out on the walls or the beds of the huts most of the day, which in the United States would be considered neglectful, abusive. And these infants developed stranger anxiety at 9 months, and they walked and talked between 12 and 15 months, and their development seemed to be normal. So Kagan said, we don't want to overstate the importance of attachment because very different cultures might have very different patterns of care bonding, and infants seem to, when they're not infants anymore, when they're toddlers and preschoolers, develop normally. So there's big debate about the cultural specificity or generality of attachment. And again, the bottom point here, attachment, just like temperament, just like genetic makeup, isn't everything. It's part of the mix. It's a potential risk factor. It might even be a potential protective factor, but there's too many other variables, and that's why we're spending the first few weeks of the course going through these variables and processes that might sum up to psychopathology in some cases. Questions on attachment. I remember, you're going to have to remember back to last time. I'll flip and go to today's, which will help if I put on my glasses. And here it is. I don't see anybody with hand up. So this week, tomorrow, we have a day over in Tolman Hall of interviewing prospective graduate students for our psychology department, and I'll be interviewing during my regular office hours, so I'll have office hours early tomorrow, 1 to 1:30, and then again a little late, 3:30 to 4, just for this week only. So now we're going up the developmental ladder into the preschool years and into the grade school years. What do parents have to do with all this? This lecture would have been multiplied by 5 or 10 or 15, would have been half the course if developmental psychopathology had been taught 50 years ago. Because it was really the only influence anybody thought was worth mentioning. You grow up, we're helpless primates, attachment's important, Balbi had done his work in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, and parenting styles, parenting practices beyond the attachment phase, that's the environmental influence that shapes kids' behavior. That really is it. But our field swings like a pendulum gone amok. By the time twin and adoption studies had really caught on in the 70s and 80s, by the 90s, by 20 years ago, it was totally reversed. There was an important book called The Nurture Assumption. It was published 20 years ago today. If you're interested, you can probably still get it on Amazon in paperback. Judith Harris, who had dropped out of the graduate program at Harvard, but was still interested in research, wrote a book and said, parents don't matter squat, essentially. They're overstated. Kids have genetic predispositions, kids have temperaments, and before you know it, by the age of 5 and 6, kids are hanging out with their peers. Everything we think about the nurture assumption that parents really matter is kind of BS. Shared environments, remember, don't count for much. It's really the peer group that determines who you're going to be when you're 20, 30, 40, etc. So, do parents matter everything, or do parents matter nothing? Maybe now in 2014, we've got a view that says when parents are important, how they're important, to put it in some balanced perspective. Again, this challenge of 30 years ago, leading to the nurture assumption of 20 years ago, is what? Family, twin, and adoption studies. Heritability for most traits and many disorders is moderate to high. Non-shared environmental effects, not what parents do in their families, but these unique interactions they have with their kids. And peer groups are important. Shared environmental effects are very small, except for externalizing behavior. So that's the context. So, just as to begin last time on attachment, kids aren't just helpless the first year of life, kids are helpless for many years of life, relatively, especially in the information age when kids have to learn tons and tons and tons. And so, learning, culture, parents, schools, families, neighborhoods, all this is part of the shared and non-shared environment, and that's what we're going to be talking about. And again, we're going beyond the early attachment in the first year and a half of life, into the later years. So, how do parents, let's assume there's some effect of parents, what do? How many times have you been over to the grocery store, and it's up long lines in the afternoon, and there's that kid in the cart with the little feet sticking facing the parent, and the kid's really fussy and doesn't want to wait in line, and the kid's starting to yelp in line, and the parent says, no screaming! Don't hit your brother, smack, and the parent. So what's the parent saying and doing? Very different things. Kid's probably modeling. Kid may be modeling the parent doing what the parent does rather than what the parent says. So we forget that parents model behavior. Parents who argue, parents who are irritable, parents who are depressed are modeling behaviors that kids pick up on pretty readily. Beyond modeling, let's go much more cognitive. Kids may, when they're a little bit older, start to say, in this family, nobody's any good but us. Or in this family, we help other people, that's what we do. Or in this family, we only wrap Christmas presents in red boxes with green ribbon and not the other way around. What are the values that kids internalizing? About sharing, about empathy, about prejudicial behavior, non-prejudicial behavior, about how to approach the world. So it's not just modeling behavior, kids internalizing values. Parents also may, for their own psychological reasons, keep the kids close for a very long time or push the kids out into the world. So one of the effects of parenting is to enhance the effects of the non-shared peer environment. Do parents help you select which peers to have? Do parents drive you to play dates? Do parents model and promote peer interactions, or do they say, boy, the world's kind of a scary place, you stay close to home? So there's several mechanisms through which parenting may work. If you go to the world's research literature, and there's a vast research literature, thousands, tens of thousands of papers over the last essentially 100 years, and you study US and Europe and Asia and Africa, every continent, South America, and you do observations of parenting, or you get parents to report on their own behaviors. We'll talk about those measurement strategies in a minute. What's the main finding? The main finding is, across all of the things parents do, this is very similar to all of the things kids can do. And what does it factor down to? Internalizing versus externalizing. All the things parents do factor down essentially into two major dimensions of parenting behavior. One is, how warm and responsive and accepting is that parent? Does the parent show a lot of love? Does the parent like being a parent? Does the parent encourage the kids? Is the parent responsive as the kid gets older to the kid's needs and wants and desires? Warmth and responsiveness is this big dimension, and some parents are really high on it. Other parents who didn't want kids, or who are stressed themselves, or depressed themselves, or any one of a number of reasons, don't want those kids around. Kids are a burden to them. They're not warm and responsive at all. And of course, most parents are somewhere in the middle. So that's dimension number one. Very important, because if you're not somewhat warm and responsive, with this long period of development, kids might not have a fighting chance. And what's the other dimension? How many demands does the parent put on the kid? Is this easy street until you're 40? Or is this, okay, at 2 you've got your 2-year-old chores, and at 4 you've got your 4-year-old chores. And actually, when Dad and I talk, you listen. And there's rules in the house. And we're going to say, you do a set amount of homework each night before the device goes on. How structured, how much limit setting, how controlling and demanding appropriately are the parents? So those are two dimensions. And what's really interesting about this is, across these many, many studies, these two dimensions are just about at a right angle to each other. They're uncorrelated. You can be really warm and loving and giving as a parent, and be, at the same time, really high demanding or not demanding at all. It's not that, oh, of course, warm parents are automatically controlling and demanding. They go almost at cross purposes with each other, which has very interesting implications, which we'll see in a minute. Okay, think of yourselves, think of your siblings, think of kids you tutored or worked with. Give me a couple of examples of, at various ages, what a warm and responsive set of parents really does. One at a time, really hard to pick. Come on, give me something. Yeah, it's right here. So the kid's hungry, and it's like, okay, it's dinner time. You're responding to the kid. Now, this gets interesting. That's probably good to do when the kid's 4 months of age. Otherwise, the kid cries, and it's really annoying. But what about if the kid says at 4:30 in the afternoon on the weekend, I'm hungry, and the parent says, yeah, but you just had your lunch, but you picked at it. You're going to wait till 6 o'clock. Is that warm, or is that setting a limit? Some of them get harder to sort out, right? You can see the cross-hatching. Who else? You had one. Any age group. Pick an age group. You're really sick. You've got a fever. Do you like your model planes? Will you actually get to watch a little TV in bed? Do you get a little special hug? The parent's saying, okay, we're going to get you better. Now, if it's the 3rd week of being sick with a 99.1 temperature and the kid's missed 3 weeks of school, now maybe that warmth is too much. So it all depends. Who's got another example? Right here. So the parent says, I'm following your desires. Of course, with the Olympics on now, maybe you don't get the kid 8 hours a day in gymnastics at age 4, but if the kid at a certain age says, yeah, I'm into gymnastics, the parents are responsive and get the kid to practice. Who's got one? Somebody right behind you. Had their hand up. Yeah. An interesting example, the parent showing interest. How did your day go at school? What did you do with your friends? Now, there's an age in our culture now, starts at about 10 years and 8 months and goes to about 12 years and 2 months, when if a parent asks how the day is, the kid cannot respond. This is the age at which I'm going to the movies with my friends, the car must be stopped 3 blocks from the theater, go no further, danger zone. Hard to talk to preteens because they're independent, they're individuating. But parents who maintain that interest and find ways to keep interested and involved and warm and responsive tends to be a protective factor against a lot of problems in the teen years. So it's not just being warm and gushing all the time, it's timing. Okay, examples of control and limit setting. Yes? Right, it doesn't have to be boot camp. Right? 3:42 and 10 seconds, algebra out. But a general schedule so it's not just hang out all the time. And parents really vary on that. Some parents are like, my kid will internalize, they'll learn their own. Others are like, no, we got a schedule around here. Yeah, it's right here. What is your bedtime? When you fall asleep, with all the devices on and the lights on, or around here, on a school night, bedtime is X. And what is bedtime for a 4-year-old versus a 10-year-old versus a 16-year-old? And these are big examples of structure and limit setting. Why is it important? Because if teens don't sleep, it's a big issue. We'll talk about it a little bit later in the course, and if you take a Psych 133 or 2, you'll learn a lot more about sleep. So structure is important. Way in back. Yeah. Curse words by the parent? Oh, by the kid. There are house rules that we don't say certain words starting with certain letters in this house. That's control and limit setting. Some parents say, oh, well, come on, you're frustrated, say anything you want. Others are like, no, we don't do that in here. So that would be part of the dimension, right here. Now we get into something interesting. Maybe my kid is a conduit for my own self-esteem as a parent. I'm going to control my kid, about the sort of wacky dad super coaches whose self-esteem depends on Todd Marinovic's dad, et cetera, if you know him, former USC quarterback. And that might be extreme control because it's really serving some other end. Let's go right here. Grandma's rule, if you do this, you get that. If you don't do this, you don't get that, et cetera, et cetera. Contingencies, that's part of structure and limit setting. One more. You're not allowed to bring Spike over to the house. Spike's a bad influence. And I don't want you hanging out Spikes after school when I'm at work. That's control limit setting. Works better with a 6-year-old than a 15-year-old. Yeah, make me not see Spike, right? So what do you do then? These are the dilemmas. So thanks, good input. So before we get into this a little bit more, how do you know how a parent parents? Well, you ask the parent. There's a million parenting checklists and rating scales. What's the worst way of measuring parenting? Parent reports and rating scales. It's terrible. I myself, we've got 3 boys. Have I ever raised my voice? No. Have I always followed through on rewards promised? Of course. Just read my rating scale I filled out, right? Parents lie through their teeth about this stuff. Who wants to be a crappy parent if you're in a research study or you're seeing a clinician? So we have to take parent self-report with a big grain of salt. Now, there's exceptions to this. There's some very interesting parent rating scales that our team and many teams have found are actually quite predictive, but be careful. Maybe a better idea is to ask the kid, hey, Junior, how warm is mom and dad? How much do they set limits? They say there's a curfew. Oh, yeah, really not? So the discrepancy sometimes between a parent and a child report is very interesting. Or if you're in therapy with a clinician who's gotten to know the family for a long time, maybe the clinician who hasn't necessarily lived in the house with you, but gets a sense. Or if you're really behavioral, if you're kind of behavioristically oriented, you send observers in the house, or in the old days they would do this, have a tape recorder in the central sort of closet in the house, and it would go on at random intervals, and it would record verbatim what was being said at the dinner table in the living room. And then researchers would code for the next 20 years all those words said. Maybe that tells you a lot more validly who's warm and responsive, who's controlling and limit setting. Obviously, that's a big cost. So there's many ways to measure parenting. Some of you are going to go on and work in labs and do parenting stuff. Some of you are going to be clinically oriented people to work with families. Think about who do you trust? Whose information is valid? Probably all of these sources have some validity, but no one is perfect. So now, here's what we get. So we're going to skip one ahead. We get, what's our x-axis? Warmth and responsiveness. Super high over here, super low over there. And what's our y-axis? Control, demand, limit setting. Super high on top, super low on the bottom. And because they really are at right angles, they're very lowly correlated in most studies, you get the 4 quadrants, the 4 grids. So let's just go back. We'll come back to the slide in a minute. What is it called if you're really warm and responsive, and you also set a lot of limits and have high demands on your kids? That's authoritative/responsive parenting. What if you're equally high on warmth, but you don't really believe in setting a lot of limits and you're afraid of the kids, or you think it's too confining? That's permissive. Berkeley in the 60s. My kid's going to develop. It's a beautiful world out there. I'll show a lot of love, and they'll find their own way. Now let's go to the other side. What if you're pretty dang high on the control and limit setting, but you're not so warm, you're not so responsive? Authoritarian, sometimes called autocratic. This is where parents rule. Kids don't have a lot to say. This isn't a democracy. The parents are the dictators. What if you're equally high on that control and limit setting, but there's no warmth there? Now we get, let's see, I said it wrong. So you're equally high, now you're low on the control, and you're low on the warmth and responsiveness. Permissive. It's easier to see when you actually look at the graphic. So authoritative. Parents are warm, they're responsive, and have place a lot of demands on kids. A lot of schedules, etc. A lot of knowing where the peers are. Still high on that warmth, but very low on control, permissive. Now we go to the low on the warmth dimension. If you're low on warmth and high on control, authoritarian, autocratic, parents rule, rather than kids rule and permissive. But if you're low on both, there's not many rules in the house, and the parents really don't bond with or care for the kids. That's called uninvolved. What's the extreme of uninvolved parenting? Neglect. The kid doesn't get enough to eat. The kid gets no stimulation. As we'll talk about in a few weeks, being physically abused is not good if you're a kid. Being sexually abused and assaulted is not good. But the worst is if you're neglected. By far the worst outcomes, cognitively, emotionally, if you had to choose. Not a good choice to make. So this is our 2x2. Now, do parents fit neatly into one of these categories? No. You could be close to the extremes, close to the middle. A lot of parents show a little bit of authoritativeness and a little bit of authoritarianness depending on the situation, but it gives us a typology. It gives us sort of ideal parenting types. Not that uninvolved is ideal, but sort of prototypes. So what do we know? Quick question first. Stay tuned for 10 minutes. What if one parent's authoritarian, one's authoritative? Now you've got inconsistency between parents. Number one, kids know that in about a heartbeat, right? They know who the sucker is. They know who the toughie is, right? And it might vary for different aspects of the day. So another way of thinking about parenting is, this is a little bit important, but what's really important is both parents are on the same page. And if they're not, that's when real trouble begins. So we'll get to that. Okay? Question here. Yeah, are richer families in one, poorer in another? What about ethnicity? We'll start to get to that. Those are moderators, right? We'll talk about those soon. But if we went for very general findings first, sort of averaging across many studies, social class, ethnicity, on average, parents who are pretty high authoritative and responsive, remember, they got a lot of the warmth and responsiveness, a lot of control. Their kids, if you do these correlational studies, tend to do pretty well in school and have pretty good friends. Which of course proves that authoritative parenting causes the outcome, right? Not so fast. We'll get there soon. On average, if a family's really pretty permissive, very warm and responsive, but not so many limits, well, sometimes kids are very creative in those homes. And sometimes kids are like a mess. They've never internalized any values or structure. They never turn in homework. They don't have to do friggin' homework. We live in my house. We do it when I feel like it, which is every other Thursday, right? So permissiveness can kind of go in two different directions. What about, again, on average, this is very much a generalization of authoritarian, autocratic parenting styles. Well, sometimes kids are pretty much, yes, sir, they've been to boot camp. Other times kids rebel. You're controlling me too much. I'm not getting the warmth, and I'm going to find some other way of getting attention. So again, like with permissive parents, kids of highly authoritarian parents may either toe the line, not be so creative because they're following the rules, or rebel, a lot of externalizing behavior. And as I just said a couple of minutes ago, at the extremes of, back to our 2x2, very low warmth and very low demands and control, at the the very bottom of that grid, that quadrant, kids are cognitively deprived, kids may be malnourished, kids may show intellectual